You know, when we start something new, a project, a business, any big ambition, we get so caught up in the excitement of that first step. But in the high-stakes game of strategy, the beginning, well, it's almost irrelevant. The only thing that truly counts is how it ends. This is the heart of Law 29, plan all the way to the end. And really getting this is, well, it's everything.
This warning from way back in the 5th century BC gets right to the point, doesn't it? A fantastic start can feel like a blessing, but if you're not careful, it can be a trap. It's a powerful reminder that the path to glory can, and often does, lead right off a cliff if you haven't looked ahead to see where it's going.
So there's this great old parable about a king of Tartary. He meets a wise holy man who offers him a piece of life-changing advice for a price, and it's a steep one, 100 dinars. Now the king's court, they all laugh at this, but the king, he's intrigued. He senses that some wisdom is worth far more than gold, so he pays the man. And that was it. That was the advice. Never begin anything until you have reflected what will be the end of it. So simple, it almost sounds foolish, right? The court just lost it, laughing at the king for spending a fortune on a proverb. But the king, he got it. He had the phrase carved into the walls of his palace, stamped onto his dinner plates, a constant daily reminder that the destination is all that matters. That dervish's advice, that's the very soul of Law 29. This is where we turn that simple foresight into a powerful strategic weapon. It's about seeing the entire chessboard, every possible move, every potential threat, before you even touch your first pawn. When you have a crystal clear vision of where you're going, you're not just hoping things work out. You are engineering the outcome. This clarity keeps you from getting sidetracked by little victories or completely derailed by unexpected problems. But maybe the most important thing it does, it tells you when you're done. It tells you when to stop. Now, to really see what happens when you ignore this law, we've got to talk about the explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa. Here's a guy who had a dream bigger than the world he knew, but his plan was fatally short-sighted. His story is a really stark warning for all of us. So get this, Balboa does the impossible. He becomes the first European to lay eyes on the Pacific Ocean, an absolutely historic moment. But that's where his plan ended. He just rushes back, tells everyone what he found, and asks for a bigger army. Well, that basically sends up a flare for all his rivals. A man named Pedrarius shows up to take his command, and Balboa has no backup plan. He just reacts, desperately trying to pull off another expedition, which fails. And the final twist? He's lured into a trap by a man he thought was his friend, Pizarro, and then he's executed. His discovery was world-changing, but his own story ends with his head in a basket. And this is where the lesson really hits home. Balboa was running on pure emotion. He saw the glory, he saw the gold, but he was blind to the political dangers circling overhead. A true strategist, a master of this law, would have played it so differently. Keep the discovery quiet, build your power base, get rid of your rivals first, and then secure your prize. Balboa reached the finish line first, but he lost the race because he never planned for what would happen after he crossed it. Okay, so let's flip the coin. Let's look at someone who was the absolute embodiment of this law, Otto von Bismarck. The Iron Chancellor. This was a man whose every single action was a calculated piece of a much larger puzzle, all leading to one very specific end. Just look at how methodical this is. Each of these wars looks aggressive on the surface, but none of them was about conquest for its own sake. The war with Denmark? That was to fire up national pride. The war with Austria? To break away and become the dominant German power. And the war with France? That was the final, brilliant move, using a common enemy to rally all the other German states into a single unified empire. Every step was just a means to a very clear end. And here is the true genius of it all. The second the German Empire was created, he just stopped. The rest of Europe was bracing for this new German giant to start swallowing its neighbors, but Bismarck's plan was finished. He'd reached the end, and for the next 20 years he worked as a peacemaker, protecting what he had built. Knowing when to stop, that is the ultimate sign of a complete plan. This all brings us to what's really going on inside our heads, because Law 29 isn't just about making a to-do list. It's about changing your entire perspective on time and on your own actions. Think about it like this. The ancient Greeks believed that we mortals are trapped in the here and now, just tossed around by our feelings and by circumstance. But the gods on Olympus, they could see the whole picture, the entire pattern of destiny. Planning to the end is your attempt to gain that godlike view, to rise above the daily chaos and see the long game.
It's the difference between being a victim of the future and becoming its architect.
So why is this so hard for most of us? Well, we fall into these mental traps. We let our hopes and dreams cloud our judgment, mistaking wishful thinking for an actual plan. We fixate on that happy ending, but we don't plan for the ugly, difficult parts in the middle. We panic about the fire right in front of us, and we completely miss the tidal wave forming out on the horizon.
This quote from Cardinal de Retz just nails it. The crisis of the day is loud, it's screaming for your attention. But the threat that actually takes you out is almost always the one you dismissed as being too far off to matter. Real strategic thinking is about feeling the weight of that distant danger just as heavily as the one at your doorstep.
All right, so after all this, the stories, the strategies, what's the one thing we need to take away from this law? It really all boils down to a single, hard truth. I mean, really think about that. What good is it? Balboa had the dream, he saw the ocean, but it was Pizarro who got the golden glory from conquering the Incas. If your plan doesn't carry you all the way through to the very end, chances are you're just setting the table for someone else to come and eat the feast.
This is exactly why your conclusion has to be absolutely unshakably clear in your mind. Vague goals lead to messy actions and invite disaster. That final objective has to be your North Star, the thing that guides you through every storm and past every temptation. You have to see the end and refuse to be pushed off course.
And let's end with this piece of wisdom from Montaigne. Planning all the way to the end isn't about being rigid or inflexible. It's about being smart with your energy. Don't waste it all in a flurry of excitement at the beginning. Start coolly, think things through, and save your real power for the final moves, the ones that lock in the victory you've been planning from the very start.